I don't know what you mean about no cold open, Chris. Oh, look, I've just cold opened the show.
Oh, Chris.
Oh, no.
It makes a complete change. Right, hi everyone. It's a 3 legs, 4 wheels / everything F1 hybrid team-up podcast tonight. It's like that episode of The Simpsons when the Family Guy cast turned up.
But who's Homer?
So, there are actually 8 of us on the show, so rather than...
Are there 8? I thought there were 9.
There are 9 of us on the show. Sorry, we have the return of Flood.
Yeah,
Hey.
I'm here.
Along with, I'll let everyone... It's Paul, obviously, here, and I'll let everyone introduce themselves, starting with Team 3 legs, 4 wheels.
Am I going first? So, yeah, hi, I'm Sean. And I've lost my voice all of a sudden. That's helpful.
Hi, I'm Kieran.
Hi, I'm Lee.
And Flood, you might as well say something.
Well, I've already said hello. But okay, hi everyone.
And then the team from Everything F1 as well.
So you call me Tiller on the podcast, so Tiller. So yeah, that's me. Hello.
Anyone volunteering to go next?
Go, Coops.
Oh, is that Coops? Sorry, Coops, you go.
I'm Coops.
I'll go next. Hi, I'm Hamish.
And hi, I'm Amy.
So we've been talking about doing a joint show for the last few weeks, and we're kind of all in it together like some giant Belgium 1998 pile-up now.
Which one of us is Ricardo Rosset?
I've got his model in front of me.
Who was the last one to arrive?
Oh, damn, that's me.
Obviously, everyone's favourite Ricardo Rosset story was after one particular crash, and he came back to the paddock, and the mechanics had rearranged the letters on his paddock scooter to say Tosser. Yeah, kind of just in time, because we are on the verge of the 2024 F1 season, which, again, promises to be the longest one ever.
Is it the weekend after next?
It is.
That has come around ridiculously quickly.
It really has, and don't forget, last season finished earlier than the one before.
Yeah.
Because 22, I can't remember what year it is. 22 ran into December, at least. At least we were out of the way by the end of November this year.
Yeah.
So we didn't have Christmas carols on the podium.
Which is a shame.
Well, you sort of still do, because the Dutch national anthem is basically a more boring version of Partridge in a Pear Tree. Listen to it, you'll never get it out of your head.
Oh, great! Thanks. We all needed that. So yeah, we've got testing this weekend, and we have a fresh glut of 10 cars that have been launched. Anybody want to kick us off with anything in particular they've noticed about things to look forward to with this year's entries?
I think, first of all, they're all going to look a bit the same, aren't they? Because they've all gone very dark on the liveries, from what we've seen. Certainly darker than last year, which I'm not a fan of. I don't like having to think about what I'm looking at.
I don't know. I think that what's really interesting, saying they all look the same. I didn't even think about liveries to begin with. I thought about all the cars look the same because they've all nicked the Red Bull design for 2023. And then you look at the Red Bull, and it's this absolute terrifying behemoth of a thing, which I don't quite understand. And makes me even more worried that this year might be more of a clean sweep. So I think I'm going to be watching out for Red Bull and what the hell they've come up with over that winter break, and how they're turning Mercedes inventions which they can work into something that does work. I think that's what's really interesting about Red Bull this season.
Yeah, this feels if there was ever a year to stick that tenor on a single driver and team to win every race, I don't think I've seen Formula One where that looks as ominous as what Verstappen and a good Red Bull could do.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Logan Sargent.
Sorry.
Damn, that's a tenor I'm not going to see again. I mean, the thing is with Red Bull, it's another Adrian Newey car, and that, when he's on a run, they are completely and utterly unstoppable. One thing that has become clear about Red Bull is the renders that they've released, though. It doesn't look like that's going to be what the car we're going to see Actually, in 2 days' time when testing starts.
I mean, when is that ever the case for
Yeah.
car launches, that we see anything other than a first draft?
Yeah. But I think they're all hiding them in the renders this year. What was it? Mercedes with what looked like a double suspension, just to catch people out.
Yeah, what was with that? It sort of looked like they've gone 3 ways of a suspension. We've got your regular, and then they've put in 2 extra arms just to go, guess what we're doing? We can't, we've forgotten.
There's always red herrings, isn't there? I also remember when, first no sidepod year with Mercedes, did the whole testing, didn't they, with sidepods, and then appeared on the first day of testing with none. And you feel that is going to be the way of a lot of teams. And I reckon you might see a couple of teams have displayed the likeliness of 2023's Red Bull, but might do something different in the long term. Because I think everyone's gone for that design. It almost feels a bit stupid that you also nick that, because you're just going to be the same level as all your competitors. And I think that's what Red Bull's figured out. I think Red Bull have gone, well, if we do this design again, everyone else is going to be on the exact same pace, and we need to try and figure something out, which is probably Mercedes' weakness. You know, maybe if they had stuck with it, who knows? But you can't say that now, can we, after we all slated the no sidepod design for 2 years? So anyway.
No, I think it's safe to say that was the wrong design. After 2 years of absolute diabolical results, I think it's safe to say that, yeah.
I think it was a
move on.
part of a wrong design, wasn't it? It wasn't that was necessarily... It got picked up as the big thing that was the problem, but I think that Mercedes over the last couple of years has had a lot of problems, and they were easily washed away by giving the car conventional side pods. I think this year we'll see something a bit different from Mercedes, but yeah, it'd be really interesting if Red Bull have managed to make something work that Mercedes have binned.
It'd be embarrassing, that will be. I feel like maybe that's a bold statement to say, but like if anything, what it says is that Red Bull can do what Mercedes can't, and you know, not to mention 2021, but you know that legacy still exists, and I think there'll be a very happy Christian Horner if he's able to show up Toto Wolff in that way. So I think Toto will be watching very closely Red Bull and that zero sidepod design that's meant to come in apparently in April. So I think that's going to be really interesting to watch unfold.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were so confident about other elements of the car that they're almost, I don't know, it's probably unprofessional to say that they're trolling.
No, it feels like trolling.
But yeah, they're just gone, well, this is definitely going to win us 22 races minimum next year. Can we zero pod this? Let's give it a go. See how it looks.
I wonder whether Red Bull are like quietly worried about Mercedes, because it's easy to give Mercedes the Daniel Ricciardo treatment at the minute, because we had Ricciardo pinned down as like a possible world champion at one point. Then he has 2 bad seasons with McLaren, and we chuck him in the bin. Mercedes were neck and neck with Red Bull, fighting in the closest championship we've probably ever seen in Formula One. Then they went down a bad development path for 2 seasons. And it's almost like we've kind of wrote them off as being able to fix those problems, where realistically, when you think about it, I would be shocked if they weren't like the second quickest car this year, and like much closer to Red Bull than they have been, if they've got themselves out of this like bad avenue they went down in development.
Yeah, you've got to remember as well, this will be the first car since James Allison's come back that he's had full kind of say over. So hopefully, he can at least bring it forwards. So we've got a more competitive season. His say over all things, aerodynamics and, design is going to help bring it forward to the front.
My only thought, though, would be that, like Lewis Hamilton obviously has announced that he's leaving. Is it because he's got no confidence in his team? Like, I just think maybe he knows that they're not going to develop the car. I don't know. I just think it was him leaving. I did kind of have, think he'd go to Ferrari anyway, but if he's leaving, I didn't think it'd be this soon. And maybe it's because he hasn't got confidence that they will build a car that's, like, winning worthy.
I was reading something the other day talk about Lewis leaving, and they kind of pointed more towards the fact that Lewis was wanting to extend his contract again, but they wouldn't extend his contract far enough into the future for him because they've still got an eye on, is it Kimi Antonelli?
Yes.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of me wonders whether that was Lewis's like breaking point to leave. You know, if he felt like, you know, he has been top dog in Formula One for a number of years, I'd say he's lost the top dog in Formula One moniker right now to Max Verstappen, and then to lose that within his own team, I think might have been enough to push him to move. Because I don't think it's lack of faith that Mercedes will get it back together. You know, if you don't think your current team is going to give you a car to win, you don't go to Ferrari.
But I think it was all to do with this, you know, 10-year ambassador role as well. You know, this is what he was pushing for with Mercedes for a long time, and I think they'd be kicking themselves actually for not just offering that role, because I think he probably would have stayed with just that. You know, that's 10 more years of wages for him. Not that he needs more money, but you know, it's just that kind of legacy, I guess, that he gets to kind of live for the next few years.
It's actually partly Max Verstappen's fault that this has happened, because when Max Verstappen was in Formula 3, he wasn't tied to Red Bull till halfway through the season, and Mercedes had the chance to take him, and they missed the boat, and he went to Toro Rosso, and he is where he is. And the hype around Antonelli just now is like the second coming of a Max Verstappen already. And they do not want to lose that opportunity a second time. So I think that's why they've decided they're not going to give... They've basically went down the Alpine negotiation with the drivers and went, yeah, you're good, but we're not going to give you what you want. And he's went, well, no, someone else is going to give me the money, because they've got their eye on Antonelli in the hope that he comes to F2. Because he's not doing F3, he's went straight to F2. And actually
good
in the
in
hope
testing as well in F2.
Yeah. And the hope is that he is as good as the hype is in F2, and he goes where they all think he's going to go, and then by 25 he'll be in the car. So Max Verstappen is the reason that Hamilton has signed for Ferrari.
I mean, my take on the timing of the Lewis announcement is, come 26, we've got the next set of regulations coming in, so the cars are going to get developed in 25, and I think Lewis wanted to sort out his team for 25 and 26 all at the same time, so he could have a say in what the car under the new regulations acted like. And if Mercedes weren't prepared to give him a contract into 26, then I think the time was actually completely ideal for him to make the move.
He's done the same thing, hasn't he, that he did with Mercedes' move. He went to Mercedes a year before the big regulation change in 2014. And that worked out well for him. But, I mean, the move to Ferrari, are Ferrari going to get it right? If they're going to get it right under anyone, I believe they get it right under Fred Vasseur.
There is actually rumours that I can't remember his name, but it's the second in charge under Adrian Newey at Red Bull that they're looking to get.
Yeah, Pierre Vache.
Yeah, apparently that Ferrari are opening the checkbook to get him in. And then God knows if the Horner situation goes the way it's going, will Adrian Newey decide on the third time of asking to jump to Ferrari, knowing that Lewis Hamilton is sitting there?
And this would be his almost Ross Brawn-style career swan song.
Yep.
Of one last big job.
Well, that's the only thing... Well, those are the two only things he wishes that he was able to do in his career, and that was Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton, so he could do it all in one hit.
Yeah.
Although I don't think that any kind of designs would hit any for the first 2 years of Lewis Hamilton's kind of career with Ferrari anyway. So
yeah,
he would have influence. He'd have
it'd be a development thing.
He would nudge them in the right direction at least.
What I wonder if it's all too late for Hamilton, and I mean that in the kindest way.
No, you don't.
It's what 25. He's not going to win a championship in 25, right? So his best shots in 26, and part of me does question if that 2021 was his last chance at the 8th, and now he is too old to develop a car to put him in the championship position. I don't know if that's worth a debate, but it's definitely worth a question, I think, about where Lewis is and if that eighth is even possible with development time in question.
Who knows? His best year might be this year, 2024.
It's not as old as Alonso.
Might be a bullet. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Alonso's still convinced he can get title number 3.
He wants to go to, he was saying he could go to 48 the other day or something.
He's kicked the can down the road.
Yeah, he made an absolute statement about the fact he wanted to be in F1 so many years down the road, and you just look at it and go, you could see it, but there must be a limit to what he can do. The ceiling must be somewhere near.
I don't know. Their drivers are much fitter these days than they ever were. If you look back, in history, these guys are the fittest humans in the world. So there's no reason why him at 48 years old can't be as competitive. If Alonso could ride, drive a washing machine, he'd somehow get it to the finish line and score decent points with it, because he's just that sort of driver. So.
Yeah, I mean he won Le Mans in the world's fastest Prius.
I'd love to speak to somebody that knows the sports science side of Formula One and how much the drivers can get away with, when it comes to testosterone replacement and stuff like that. How far can they push these things before there's a doping scandal in F1? Because if machinery is pushed to the point of collapse in a Formula One car, the drivers have to be doing the same on levels of fitness. So for Alonso, it would flabbergast me that if he wasn't at least on testosterone replacement.
I mean, F1 signed up to the World Anti-Doping Alliance, so there are permissible maximum levels of testosterone for every athlete. So whatever he's doing, it's still within the guidance. I mean, the thing is, though, some people are just freaks of nature. I don't know if there's any other American football fans on here, but look at Tom Brady playing top-level NFL quarterback into his 40s.
Yeah,
yeah, but he had a weird diet, didn't he? I mean that didn't sound worth it.
Yeah, he got to 40 without ever having a coffee in his life. Now,
that's just wrong.
That's the kind of person I do not trust and never will.
almost as bad as vegans.
I've never had a coffee in my life, but I've replaced it with about 10 billion Ferrero Rocher. And that's why I'm not Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's the same. That's the same as a coffee.
Okay. That's a sociopath level of swappage now.
I don't know what that says for me, because I live off coffee and Ferrero Rocher.
Double-barreled.
The ultimate combo.
You don't replace Ferrero Rocher with coffee or coffee with that. You have the coffee with the Ferrero Rocher.
This is why I'm now working on something new called type 3 diabetes.
These turbo
just a walking jar of honey.
You've gone so far over the edge, but now diabetes is scared of you.
I've just got Paul in my head now doing some sort of F1 driver style paddock interview, going, so yes, what happens? We get to 3, we keep pushing, we push for 4.
Even Winnie the Pooh looks at Paul and goes, "Put the jar down, son. No more honey, Paul."
I'm started looking at a half-drunk bottle of Coke and I'm thinking, I can't argue here.
You started it.
I wouldn't mind. I'm starting to feel bad about the cream egg I'm eating right now, though.
Oh, cream egg.
Oh, no, I don't feel bad about the cream eggs.
It's a white chocolate one, too.
I had a white one for the first time a couple of weeks ago. It is so sweet.
Yeah, they're weird. Yeah, they're. I'm not a fan of white chocolate cream eggs.
I'm not a fan of it. It was part of a multi-pack.
Can I just say, if we just entered into the Patreon version of your podcast?
We've drifted. We have drifted slightly.
I have the Danny Ricciardo book next to me if anybody wants to slide reading.
Because I don't think Alonso's longevity is down to cream egg.
No.
Or Danny Ricciardo's book.
What just happened then was the conversational equivalent of a moth seeing a candle.
There must be more than one of us on here that has a level of ADHD, because that I followed everything that just happened there without a problem.
God, you have been listening to us for too long.
I mean, I was going to say for our American listeners, this is what a cream egg is like, but do they do cream eggs in America?
Isn't America the one that ruined cream eggs because they got purchased by Kraft and then they changed the recipe?
Guaranteed.
Hi, America.
We've got a lot of American fans too, but we love you, America. Just don't change your chocolate.
Just leave our cream eggs alone.
We were so nice.
Enjoy your
about
cream
Brady.
egg full of cheese.
I mean, they banned the Kinder Egg because it's dangerous to children, and if that's not ironic.
Yeah, let's not alienate 35% of our listeners.
They do a good job of that themselves, to be fair.
When was the last time you saw a Kinder Egg storm a school?
Kieran, press the button.
Don't say it, baby.
This has gone south, for which I can only apologise.
Shall we bring it back on track?
I think we should. Somebody pick
Okay,
an
I've got-
F1 related topic.
I've got a serious question about F1. Sorry to spoil the fun.
Wow.
Go
But
for
it involves a nice scenario, at least. If
How aerodynamic is a cream egg? Okay, so
Let's ask Adrian Newey.
how fast would Alonso be if you skinned his head? No. So Alonso has this incredible body, allegedly. He can. Right.
What are you doing?
You've got his calendar.
where is this going?
Who have you been speaking
Jesus
to?
Christ. It's like I'm speaking with Kieran's voice.
Oh, there's 8 others here. Crap, I thought this was my lonely time.
Turned into GQ magazine or something here.
They're called intrusive thoughts for a reason.
How sexy is Alonso? Let's flesh it out, guys.
Can I just check? You
Right, we
guys
need
do
a poll.
have the explicit mark on your show as well, don't you?
They do now.
We have had it for a few episodes.
Yeah, you got to remember, I'm on the podcast quite a lot.
That's fair.
But I do go and edit everything out as much as I can.
I'll send you the raw.
As
I'll
much
send
as
you
it
the raw
sounds-
audio.
Taylor, I am so sorry.
Until I drop the C word during a Facebook Live.
You mean Christian
Before
Horner?
us, yes. Well,
No, he means.
yeah. Yeah, I done that the last time on a Facebook Live before I stopped recording.
Before you stopped going live, it wasn't just
Yes.
recording; it was live.
Oh God.
Yes,
I'm shaking my head now. You can't see me, but I am absolutely shaking my head. Tut, tut.
it's expected. Anyway,
So Fernando Alonso,
Yeah, so
Yes, back to Kieran's boyfriend.
he is a statistically healthy human being. If we have to be PC about it, he's that chunk of hunk. So he could work. So he thinks he can go to 47, 48, right? But he has to be in demand for that to be the case. So is
It sounds
there
like
going
he's
to
in
be a team
demand with you.
who was? Jane, if you're listening, it's only you. It's you alone. It's no one else.
that's what he's saying is good cover.
Yeah. There was no point. She isn't listening.
Back on.
But Fernando might be, so carry on.
Fernando. So yeah, he has to be in demand, right, from an F1 team. Is there anyone who, even if he is fit as he can be, is there anyone who's going to actually invest more than 1 year in a in-demand Fernando Alonso? Or do we get to a point with Alonso now where he's in his swan song again somehow, and the perfect seat for him is a year-long or 2-year-long seat warmer for Kimi Antonelli if he does turn out to be the real deal?
Do you know what? I think he's still going to go back to Enstone at some point because he always does.
No, I think that's gone.
I think he burnt those bridges a lot when he left.
Yeah, but we've said that a few times.
True.
I think that like a year at Mercedes
Yeah.
with an option on a second year, like for both parties, is perfect for Alonso.
Do you think he'd take that over Aston? Over a
Absolutely.
2-year, 3-year deal with Aston?
Yeah, because he would have the chance of fighting for that championship with Mercedes. I think Aston are going to be a force in the future and probably will be like a race-winning, if not championship competing team. But is it going to be in time for Alonso? Or is he going to be saying, maybe I can go till I'm 58?
What's the point in offering, if they're not going to offer Lewis more than a 1+1, then they're definitely not going to offer Alonso more than a 1+1, given how untrustworthy you could say he is when it comes to contract stuff.
I think they could now that Lewis is gone. I think Mercedes might be a bit fearful they would have the same thing. So I could see them offering a better deal to Alonso now Lewis has left.
Yeah.
But I would also, what I would do if I was Mercedes is say, look, we'll take Alonso, we'll give you Antonelli, shove him in your Aston, see how he does, because he'll probably be better than Stroll. Sorry, Stroll. And we'll have Alonso for a bit, and if it doesn't work out, we'll switch. That might be the best option. And I know Toto was with Flavitore quite recently, wasn't he? So I think that could honestly be a possibility.
The thing you got to remember though is that Aston's going to Honda, so there's no Mercedes tie-ups, and so that might be another thing.
Good point.
I wouldn't count out Alonso going back to Aston Martin, because if if he leaves and they take Sainz or someone in his place, you have to be looking at maybe 2 years left of Stroll. You know, there's gonna be a point where either he gets tired of being in a sport where he's just about competing in, or the team are tired of hemorrhaging points, especially if they get a good car. Right now, he's kind of masked by the fact that the car is kind of good sometimes. Most of the time, it's average. And when Alonso was getting podiums, it wasn't the fact of, they've made a podium car. It's like, Fernando's getting the car onto the podium. Where realistically, they should have had two cars like higher up.
You don't forget though, Lance Stroll was recovering from a broken wrist at the beginning.
Oh no,
of the season.
yeah, no, absolutely. But I'm just saying, I don't think if it wasn't for like his father, he'd already be gone.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He
A
was
million
better with
percent.
2 broken wrists than he was with 2 functioning ones. I mean, it's a test race, which is somehow the weirdest thing.
I could definitely see a situation where Alonso gets like his last go in a good car in a Mercedes, and if he does a year there or a year or 2 years possibly, and he doesn't want to give up on Formula One, like Aston Martin, they love that guy. And I could see whoever's already in that team, be it Sainz or Ricardo or someone like that becomes their number one. I could see them ending up with Fernando as their teammate again, replacing Stroll.
I mean, I don't necessarily think he'll go back to Aston Martin. There are, he will be in Formula One as long as bad career decisions are a thing.
I don't know that his move right now doesn't seem to be too bad.
Give it another year.
His when he rocked up at Alpine as well. But Alpine, when Alonso was in it, was a half decent car.
And I'm sure the next Alpine that he's in will be a half decent car. I mean, don't forget, he may have burnt bridges, but the hierarchy's changed since he left. Well, actually, the hierarchy's changed probably because he left, and the way that he left and Piastri didn't join in.
Yeah, the irony.
So
he's a team wrecker after he's left that team.
Yeah, so don't rule it out with him back in the Enstone team under French ownership.
Who is the chief at Alpine these days? Because it was Otmar, and then it was Laurent Rossi, and then it was someone else.
Is it Bellerin or something? His name
is Bruno. It's not Bruno. I want to call him Bruno Famine, but I feel like that's wrong.
Yeah, he was the interim team lead, team principal at the end of the season.
Yeah,
Bruno Famine is. Yeah,
I think it is Bruno Famine.
Yeah,
but
I think he really recently got appointed. But I honestly, I'd be surprised if Alpine won the grid in a few years because they've been in quite big chats with Andretti now that they've been refused a place. And I think honestly think that they changed it from Renault to Alpine, and I could see Alpine going, well, Andretti need a seat, so we could just give them everything and get out of here, which I think could be a possibility.
I think that'd be a good thing because it's obvious now. Renault don't care about being in Formula One. They're in Formula One, but they're not putting the investment in that a works team needs.
The thing is, though, you can say that about Renault every 5 years, and then they come back.
This is true, yeah.
You know, Renault leaving Formula One is like Honda leaving Formula One. It's on everyone's prediction list at the start of the season, and some years it comes true.
But I mean, there were people at the Enstone team going right back to when they were Benetton who were still there through the iterations of Renault, Lotus, fucking whatever else you want to call them, and they've gone. Like, there's a lot of people who've been in that team a long time. They've gone to like Alan Permain was basically a piece of furniture at Enstone. He's now left, and he's at whatever you want to call AlphaTauri these days. I'm not calling them their official name.
VCRABS.
No, because it's basically, if it's okay to call your car a sponsor, then let Andretti into the sport. Because anyway, that's a whole other argument to have.
Andretti Vauxhall.
Yeah, I mean, when you start, I would agree with that. I don't think Alpine are long for Formula One because they've like stalwarts who've been there for like decades are now out of the team. That everybody who's in the team appears to be quite new to it. The management, the board are going to get bored, and they're going to want to get rid of the Formula One investment because it's a lot of money, and I don't think they're seeing an awful lot of return.
Yeah, don't forget, Alpine are actually selling bits of them off, aren't they? Because you've got the Redbird Capital, Ryan Reynolds, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Rory McIlroy, and
honestly,
Anthony Joshua.
Put them at the helm. Put them at the helm. See how they can do. They can't do any worse than the current flock.
The thing as well with Formula One just now with the cost cap, pretty much every team makes money. It's got value in it, so it's not the issue you have with Haas is he doesn't want to invest to get it up the grid. And because of the way it's structured, it's like, I don't care if I'm 3 seconds slower than everybody else. It still gives me value being there.
Yeah, I mean, Haas's profits for the Haas Automation Engineering have something like quadrupled since they got onto the Formula One grid, and it's actually paying for the team now.
Yeah, I think that this is the issue of the Concord Agreement, which is when it was originally made and chartered up, it was in fear that teams would leave and that they might go bankrupt, and it's trying to keep the sport alive, basically. But now it's just made all the teams kind of a bit fat and greedy, and it's made it very similar to a lot of American sports in the sense there's no relegation, and that you're always there. It's just an asset you can own. And I think by not freeing up the grid, these teams will just consistently not compete or be competitive. And we'll just sit on these massive assets and make loads of profit. So I think the issue of the Concord Agreement, although initially it made sense, it's now really holding the sport back from its full potential, and ultimately could mean it loses all its support. We've got one of the biggest waves Formula One's ever seen of fans, coming through the gates, and no one's going to watch another season of Max Verstappen win how many races in a row. And if you don't breed that competition by bringing in new teams and by enforcing kind of some competitiveness, then what's going to happen?
Yeah.
It's had this before, though, hasn't it? We've had it with Schumacher. We've had it with Lewis.
I don't think it's actually that. Not that it's like great having someone dominating, but again, like whenever someone talks about this season and they're like, it's so boring because Max is winning. Realistically, take Max out the picture. Yeah, he did win, and I know the main race is for the title, obviously, but generally it was relatively close within the midfield, and I really enjoyed watching the midfield. And if you're a fan of racing in general, I don't see why you wouldn't enjoy that.
Yeah, a lot of the ticket sales for the upcoming season appear to be going well as well. Like circuits are reporting that they've done really well for ticket sales. Obviously, prices are increasing because demand is increasing. So people still want to go and watch the races. But yeah, dominance, generally speaking, does hurt the sport. But at the same time, it is a sport. and it is for everyone else to catch up with the leaders. That's the name of the game.
But the problem is when the people that own the teams don't want to catch up with the leaders because they're doing very nicely, thank you, without pushing it and spending more money.
Yeah,
that's when things begin to drop off.
and then you get people like Zach Brown coming forward and being like, "Well, it's a surprise that they're that far out front. They own 2 teams, and we want to investigate this."
Yeah, but you can't do it in football, can you? I mean, you can own 2 teams in football, but I think was it the people who own Man City? You can have to excuse my football knowledge, but they own another team in Europe, and if they were to go against each other in the Champions League, it would break some rules basically, and they wouldn't be able to do it because it's owned by the same people. So I find it nuts that you can have 2 teams owned by the same people on the Formula 1 grid. I think Zach Brown is onto something with addressing that, and I think it's something that F1's kind of ignored for the last couple of years.
I think it's been ignored though, mainly because of just the absolute difference between the teams, just level-wise, and I think that's why it's not really been looked at, because it's like if they were both top challenging, I think that's when people would really raise an eyebrow and be like, hang on a sec, this is something, needs to be looked at.
But that is also what they're promising this year, aren't they? To work a lot closer with the junior
We
team.
think that will happen though. I can't see a Visa Cash App car being anywhere near the level of the Red Bull, and I can't see it. It was a tractor last year. I don't understand how they're gonna
But they're using last year's Red Bull this year.
They seem to have just been given it, haven't they?
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So is everyone else from what we've seen.
Yeah. If they're always going to be a year behind, though, if they're always going to be a year behind everything, I don't know. I feel like it's not great having 2 teams owned by the same people in there, and I get your points with that. I just think generally, if they're behind anyway, and they haven't, the only reason why it hasn't been brought up prior is because of how the difference within the teams, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the reason. Sorry, I think the reason it was not really bothered about in the first place is because Red Bull came in and brought another team into Formula One when Formula One was desperate for teams.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was they were kind of, that's one of the reasons why Red Bull got such a standing in the sport, is because they were relying on Red Bull. Great, these guys will have 2 teams, because at one point back then we were discussing sort of 3-car teams to fill the grid up.
Mm-hmm.
But if they've got last year's Red Bull as well, let's not forget what happened with it was Racing Point, wasn't it, when Racing Point got the second-hand Mercedes and were the second fastest car for the first half of the year.
Yeah, that pissed a lot of people off.
And Haas with the Ferrari as well. Haas worked closely with Ferrari and did really well in their opening 2 years, and then obviously it's tailed off a little bit because of the rules that have been tightened. But I mean, if they're getting loosened again, or there's a way to circumvent them, then it's up to the sport to close that off again.
Yeah.
What do you think they can do though? What do you think they will how do you think they'll challenge this though with the FIA and stuff?
Well, seeing as only today the FIA launched their first clothing range in association with AlphaTauri, I think they're going to do stuff all.
Yeah.
The FIA is going to. It's not corrupt's the wrong word. Don't say corrupt. They are. They're.
Say it. Go on.
People are leaving left, right, and centre who are good, and they're just in a massive. Maybe recession is the word of talent. They keep. I read something about these 2. I think it's a regulator officer just left, and Autosport went to them and was like, "Well, why is everyone leaving?" And they were like, "Don't worry, we've hired a new diversity inclusion officer." Well, that is really good. It's important to have that, but also the important people are leaving. And I think that's the difficulty, which is the FIA aren't actually getting the people in who can regulate this sport well.
Tim Goss as well. He left the FIA to go and join VCRABS because, why not?
Yeah, it's all sure.
I'm sure one of the people that left the FIA basically said, "I'm leaving because you asked me to do something. I gave you recommendations, and you went, nah, you're all right."
And that might have been Tim Goss, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's who that was, because I can't remember what it was he was asked to do, but he put in recommendations based on his job, and they've went, "We're not going to do that." So he's like, "Okay." Well, I'm away then.
I mean,
which is a very strange situation.
Yeah, we touched on this in our last show about the sort of current loggerheads between F1 and the FIA, and it's gonna be a tricky time because this shouldn't happen. But I think if there's any battle between the two of them, the FIA are going to lose.
Yeah, they'll keep the name Formula One, but the racing will just be named something else, and they'll go away and do Formula One. Will do its own thing. The commercial arm.
World Championship Motor Racing brought to you by Red Bull.
Yeah. Well, I think Formula One management own the rights to Formula One, don't they? So if they go with the sport Formula One, they break away from the FIA, they can have their own championship, but it won't be ratified by the FIA.
I think it's a leasing agreement for the name or something.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think the FIA lease, it's like a 100-year lease for the name for the Formula One management to run it as a Formula One championship.
I think that was some of Bernie Max Mosley's doing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like the last thing they did was to sign that over. So if the commercial arm of Formula One decide to split from the FIA, they can't call it Formula One.
Well, I think they knew what we're kind of realizing now, which is, as much as they were an interesting duo, their partnership kept F1 and the FIA together at points. Obviously, there was moments where it did break down between teams and the FIA and whatever. But now I think you're seeing for the first time, because they really are two separate entities for the first time in a very long time, that relationship is breaking down. And Andretti was a really classic example of that, in the sense that the FIA went, yeah, come along, join the grid, and F1 went, no, they're not joining. And that for me shows there's definitely something not working between the two parties. And I think that FIA are much more reliant on F1 than F1 is on the FIA, And yes, name changing would be an issue. It always is. But it wouldn't stop fans watching F1 if it changed name to, I don't know, Formula Uno or something, slightly different,
Pepsi presents.
Yeah, well, with the commercialization, I wouldn't be surprised soon if we do get,
AlphaTauri presents.
Yeah.
Do you not think this sort of thing started? I can't remember what year it was, but there was a big thing, wasn't there, where the way Formula One were
1950. Don't you remember the 70th anniversary Grand Prix was like 4 years ago?
Like, you were the one that was alive for it, not me.
Hold up.
But do you remember there was that point, wasn't it, where all the teams, they said they were changing the structure. Yeah, teams are going to have more investment in the future of Formula One. They're going to become stakeholders in the sport, and it was like the end of the Bernie era, which was like, this is where we're going. These are the rules. If you want to turn up and race, you can do it, but it's under our law. Mm-hmm. I feel losing that was the beginning of Formula One's problems, because the lunatics started running the asylum.
Yeah, it's. I mean, what other global sport or even local sport is there where the participant teams make the rules?
Yeah, one of them has a veto.
Yeah,
yeah, and then if
they've been there a long time.
Yeah, but if there's a team that's going to come in, with the racing pedigree of Andretti,
did you say predatory?
That's a different team.
Do you know when you've got far too many things to say in your head that you think could be funny, and it's just there's like speech becomes the bottleneck? That happened. But yeah, like you've got a team like Andretti with the racing pedigree. They were going to bring a new like engine manufacturer in, and it gets vetoed because the teams can go, yeah, but it's going to we'll lose some money. So, that's not ideal, is it? That's not a sport at that point. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, now it's being discussed at the next Concord Agreement, which comes in 2028. It's going to have a dilution fee of somewhere close to $1 billion.
There was I was talking. I was not on the race.com. I was listening to the race.com, and apparently an unnamed team principal basically said that the new Concord agreement will make it pretty much impossible for a new team to enter the grid. And that's why they've delayed it, and they've worded it, come back in 26, 27, and if General Motors has a full, has an engine, we'll let you in. Otherwise, you're just not getting in.
You need the GBP of some sort of small Pacific nation, though, wouldn't you, to enter Formula One in nearly $1 billion if you're kicking it that far down the road and you have to create an engine? You're in for nearly $2 billion before you even start.
Well, funnily enough, they basically said that if you're a fully works team, we can change the rules. It's more or less what they're hinting at, and what's the wording of the kind of like the strongly worded, you're not getting in, that they released. But if you're in it,
admit to that. I mean, realistically, this is the issue, right? Andretti have a full factory which is working on F1 designs for 2026, had hired genuine people to run that team, and they still get rejected. Who's going to take who's going to roll the dice that they can get everything running so that they could race the day after they were allowed in, and then for the F1 turn around and go, no, we still don't want you. I mean, it's no company's mad enough to do that, and that's what's insane. Yeah. Is you can have all the providence to prove yourself that you are ready to enter the sport and still get rejected. And I think that's what's nuts. If a team it really shows that readiness and everything that is needed for an F1 team, who can reject them? Apparently we can.
The crazy thing as well is like with saying that the only way to bring a team in under that agreement would be if it was another manufacturer coming in. It completely forgets the fact that right now the top team in Formula One is an independent company owned by a drinks firm which owns 2 Formula One teams.
And a lot of football clubs.
Yeah.
Nearly as many as Manchester City.
But that has a glorified sponsor in Ford. That's allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
well, it might not soon, to be fair. If the Horner investigation goes one way, Ford might scoot off somewhere else. So we'll see what happens with that.
Well, they have put out a statement, haven't they, about that? But it depends how close you want to get to the whole Horner investigation thing.
Let's see. Can we afford as good a lawyer as him?
No. Hello, patron.
Now listen. Okay, I've got a plan. If we got 650 people to give us £1,000 each,
then what? Then we'll give Lee his phone back.
Look, obviously it's a very sensitive investigation. There's lots being reported, and I guess some people might find themselves with some media slapdowns if it all does turn out to be nothing at all. So
let's see what happens when the official conclusion comes about, and save everything else for our WhatsApp groups. There is only my finger will hurt if I have to keep censoring. So, because I heard he. In the kitchen
with a cream egg.
And Adrian Newey designed one that was extra aerodynamic.
And that, let's be honest, that is inappropriate.
The funny thing was when that story broke, I think it was Kieran put it up in our little message board, and I replied, said, "Listen, I'm not even getting involved until there's more details because Vince McMahon has set a really high bar for this sort of stuff right now."
He has.
Yeah, let's not go into that. Incredibly close to the bone.
Yeah, I think Chris just heard me and Lee go. No.
So let's get back to the cars and the designs this year and what we think is going to happen, because I feel like the tangent has literally had a tangent.
Yeah, it has. I'm going to call it now. I'm going to say that all the cars behind Red Bull will bunch up and be really close, but Red Bull will still have the advantage going into, because they basically been working on this year's car for all of last year.
More or less.
Yeah, I think they were the first ones to start work on this season's car and the first ones to finish any of the development on last year's car. I think it was around about June, wasn't it? It was something ridiculously
They
early.
did still have some developments quite late in the season, but it was small stuff. I think probably, by June they were probably onto the bulk of this year.
Yeah, they found a new paint for the sponsors' logos that got them half a tenth a lap.
I'm interested to see how McLaren will do, because from what
Same.
I've been reading and what I've been listening to, McLaren have come up with some ideas that are very similar to newer ideas from the Red Bull car, but they've done it on their own. It's not like they've seen it and then adapted it. It's kind of they've went in the similar sort of development path.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what McLaren have done with the floor on the car, because they look like they were fudging it a little bit in the renders that they put out. You could see certain elements of it at one angle, and in the close-ups, those things weren't there. So that to me says that they might have something interesting that they don't want to share until the last possible second.
Funnily enough, I picked up a similar thing when they released it, and I was like, I don't know, I feel like McLaren could potentially have a good car, but every year I say this and then nothing really happens. But I do think, based off the look of the car, I think they really have worked hard, and I think with Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris in the seats as well, I think even with a car that's not 100%, they could easily get that car on the podium.
I mean, they were definitely the most improved team throughout last season.
They developed well.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
At the start, they were absolutely nowhere, and everyone was questioning. Was all the fuss over Piastri actually worth it? Now he's in F1, and by the end of the season, look what they were achieving, and hopefully the work that they put into last year's car to develop that hasn't taken away from this year's car, and we don't get them in the old sort of Force India style. Second half of the season is when they shine. First half you can just forget about.
Yeah. I just don't think they can develop an initial car. I think they can. McLaren's biggest issue has always been they can't develop an initial car, but then once they start on it, it starts flying and they can unlock bits. And so what McLaren should be looking at is where they're at in pre-season testing, and if that car is good from the start. If it's good from the start, I think they have a really strong season. But there's been a good couple of years now where they come into pre-season testing, and in the first race, you're like, what the hell's going on with McLaren? And that's their biggest issue. If they solve that, it'll be flying colours. But they were most improved, but you don't win championships by being most improved. You have to stay consistently at the top, and that's what they need to do.
Yeah,
I think they've been in the process of rebuilding, haven't they? Ever since they got rid of Honda engines, and this is we're starting to see like the fruits of that from that first year without a Honda engine in it. The Lando signing a contract and signing his future for McLaren, like medium term, let's say, I think shows that at least he has the confidence that there's something special there.
Yeah.
It's the other interesting thing about Lando Lando re-signing for McLaren is his relationship with Carlos Sainz, because it's reported that Carlos knew that he wasn't being retained at Ferrari 2 weeks before the announcement of Lewis going to Ferrari. So if he knew 2 weeks in advance, and his best mate Lando down the road is still shopping around about where he's going to be, I would put money on it that Lando knew that Lewis was leaving. And if he knew that, he would know that he's one of the top contenders for that seat if a top seat disappears in Formula One. So if he did know Lewis was leaving Mercedes, that means he's not just signed for McLaren, he's chose McLaren over Mercedes.
Funnily, you mentioned that Chiara, who's part of our team, is friends with Lando, and she messaged him, and he whether that was PR speak, he didn't have a clue. Apparently, she knew some stuff that happened because Lando had said to her, "Oh, by the way, this is happening, but don't tell anybody because it's going to come out at this time." But when the rumor came out, she messaged him, and according to her, they never had a clue.
Oh, right, wow, okay.
So
it's
it was.
hard to know, though, in that situation, to be fair, just simply because how much can he say? Because he is contractually obliged to maybe. But there's no reasons he wouldn't say it. But I do wonder if Lando, by staying at McLaren, might be limiting himself. I don't know, it might be a controversial opinion, but
I don't think he's contracted as long as we all think he is.
I agree with that. I don't think he is contracted as long as we think he is.
He's signed a multi-year deal, hasn't he?
It's multi-year, and they haven't divulged it. But if you look back, if he signed a 6-year deal, then McLaren are going to be plastering that everywhere.
You can always get out of a contract as well. There's always a way out.
Let's not forget Lewis Hamilton was contracted to Mercedes for next year.
Very true.
Exactly. Yeah, but there was options. That was an option on his side, apparently.
Yeah. But Lando will definitely have options in his McLaren contract because his stock is that high right now. He would have got the best possible outcome in those negotiations that he could have hoped for.
Yeah, I mean, his stock's high enough to do that. But if you look at it, like when Verstappen signed his big, massive deal, Red Bull were like, he signed up till 2028. When Lando signed his previous McLaren deal, they put out all the details. Now, all of a sudden, they're going, it's multi-year. It's the same as Leclerc. Leclerc's is multi-year. How long is that? Well, we're not going to tell you.
They even gave a woolly statement, didn't they, about, we don't really need to talk about numbers. He's just here.
Yeah. So I don't think McLaren quite got exactly what they wanted, or it's more a couple of years with a few options, or, it's not quite as nailed on for them to then get the PR spin going.
But I do think Lando is coming to the end of his time at McLaren anyway. Maybe not in the next couple of years, but it will be. I don't think he'll be there past maybe, 2026, 2027. I can't see him being there. I think, and McLaren know that. I think Lando's being smart because he knows that McLaren are going to want him, and he knows he's comfortable in that seat right now. And I think the reason why they're not giving the details of the contract is purely because they know that he's got a release clause. He can probably get out that contract any year he wants, and I do think his time at McLaren is coming to a little bit of an end.
The question is, where would he go? It's a really difficult landscape, F1 right now, if you're a driver on the up. Because, okay, there might be a seat at Red Bull appearing, but would you just be second fiddle to Max Verstappen? I don't think any space is going to Ferrari anytime soon now. I think Charles is not going to leave, and Hamilton's obviously there for a bit. So that's pretty stuck in. Mercedes has a seat. That's probably your only option at the top. And for McLaren, maybe Aston's a pretty lateral move.
Audi in a couple of years.
Yeah, Audi. But Sainz might be nabbing that now. It's a really tough landscape if you're in McLaren because, realistically, there's one place. Otherwise, it's going down. And Lando's not really had a close relationship with Mercedes, I wouldn't say. I mean, you could say because they use Merc engines, there might be something in that. But I don't know. It's a tough one for Lando. It's a very stick or twist. And
I think for anyone in Formula One at the minute with seats, it is just a tricky situation. And I think this is why people were annoyed, the fact that the teams can't necessarily, so the new teams are being added. Well, not anymore, but if they were, there would be more options for seats. And I think that's why people really wanted the teams to come in anyway. Because the amount of talent that we have coming from F2 as well, and there's just not, at the minute, it's just, we're flawed with talent. It's and we can't even show half of it or see what some people can do in an F1 car because of the amount of seats and who's in where and different things.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, the difficulty with anyone coming up through F2 at the moment is drivers' careers are lasting longer, and
looking at you, Fernando,
and there's some that are outstaying their welcome a little bit.
We're not looking at you, Fernando.
No, I think we're looking at Bottas.
Or Magnussen. There are not enough seats for enough talent in F2, and there's
there's Lance Stroll.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's Nico Hülkenberg as well.
Oh,
I like the guy.
About Hülkenberg.
He seems like a perfectly nice guy, but there's no way Haas wouldn't seem like a more exciting proposition, even down the back of the grid where they are, if they had 2 top-tier F2 drivers in it.
I mean, we all care about Schumacher, so you know, what I mean, like as much as Mick wrecked the cars and Gunther didn't particularly like him for it, we all watched Haas and we all had a close eye on it because Mick was there.
Yeah,
you know, and I think you're right. Even Haas could be an interesting team should they replace 2 boring drivers with 2 exciting ones. You know, no offense to Megson and Hulkenberg, but they had their time as very exciting drivers, but they're 2 pretty boring people now who are both dads, and there's no reason to be a dad.
Hey, that's gonna be fun.
There's just nothing marketable about Haas right now, is there? No. Great K-Mag, the K-Dog, the big man. No, that's Kevin Magnussen. Hulkenberg, isn't he slightly funny when he's...
The Hulk.
He's the Hulk, yeah. Remember that witticism he did 4 years ago? Give him a contract. No. Why not give an Ollie Behrman a try or give
exactly.
Even Robert Schwartzman, because there's this old thing, isn't there, which I guess has been slightly disproved because of Nick de Vries, but experience shouldn't be a dirty word. And Robert Schwartzman has been in that Ferrari for 3, 4, 5 years as a test driver. Why not give him a Haas and give him a go, see what happens?
I mean, even going back to F2 last year, I mean, Teo Pourchaire doesn't have a drive, seems to be pretty much ready. Freddie Vesti has been in F2 for a couple of years now. Drugovic, yeah.
Well, let's not push it. Teo Pourchaire, totally. What are you getting from Guan Yu Zhou, or Zhou Guan Yu, sorry?
Lot of money, I believe.
Yeah,
lot of money.
And then there's the Liam Lawson question. You know, I mean, yes,
Liam Lawson should be on the grid next year. If we do get Tsunoda go to Aston Martin, for example, or we do get Danny Rick promoted up to Red Bull, then Liam Lawson should definitely be on the grid. That sound was because my dad makes the same joke every time Liam Lawson does an overtake, that's all.
The Pato Award thing as well, if Pato Award was trying to come into Formula One, that would have been another exciting thing to happen for Formula One.
Yep.
He kind of bombed in F2, didn't he? He did a few races and was very meh.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have known about that if he'd come straight into Formula One.
Colton Herter as well, didn't he test a McLaren at one point?
Yeah, we got exclusive footage of it because it just so happened that Adam Smith was in Portimao the same day.
Yeah, but he couldn't get his... It was the super license.
That was the super license. It was something like 5 points short, and I think the FIA in their supreme wisdom said, "No, you're American. You can sod off."
Because of IndyCar. IndyCar doesn't give you enough points, but that's silly in my.
I think if you're at the top end of IndyCar for a couple of years in a row, you would accrue enough points. But I think he had an off season in the middle of, is it 3 years that go to your super license? I think he'd had a bit of a rough season, so he just wasn't quite there.
Yeah. Isn't it the case at regional F4, if you win the championship there, you get the same amount of points as 4th in the IndyCar championship?
That sounds about right.
Like that.
Something ridiculous like that. And of course, another IndyCar driver that does have the points now, but doesn't have the contract, or might have had the contract and torn it up, is Alex Palau.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who was
what happened
really
with that?
bang average when he was in F3. So.
He signed for McLaren, and then Chip Ganassi Racing said, "Hang on a minute, you've signed for us." So he went back to Chip Ganassi Racing, and then had an agreement to go to McLaren for this upcoming season, and then said, "Oh, I'm not coming to McLaren now, I'm staying with Chip Ganassi Racing."
Right, okay.
So he's managed to tell 2 teams to sod off, and one's kept him, and McLaren are now suing him for tens of millions.
Yeah.
Oscar Piastri made the right choice.
And it was that good a decision that his management team went, see you later. they ditched him as well. Went, okay, good
amazing.
Yeah.
So no management, no money, but it got Chip Ganassi though.
Yeah. I mean, he's got 2 titles as well, so he's not done too bad out of it.
Okay, fair enough.
But he was another sort of F2, back in ye olden days, GP2 driver.
I think it was GP3. I don't know if he ever got
GP3,
to GP3. I think he did GP3 and then went to Super Formula.
I think he did a bit in F2.
He may have done like a guest
I
stint.
shall look it up very quickly.
But he's one of those drivers. He's one of those drivers that was just lost to the cause. Drivers who came 7th or 8th in the championship but never really went anywhere. And now he's a double IndyCar champion. The good people at Everything F1, Christian Lundgaard on the podcast week before last week.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
There's another 7th or 8th in F2, but is now doing things in IndyCar.
Race winner in IndyCar, I think.
Yeah, he did win a race.
Yeah.
We had a chat about him about his moustache because he went to taped it off, I think, on the podium. So it's interesting, that isn't it? The kind of the talent that's gone to the F2 talent that's gone to IndyCar has done really well after being quite mid. Some would say in other series. I think. Speaking about Ilott actually, in the group in Black. I'm not saying he's mid. I thought he was always very good, but I felt like he was always quite an ignored talent. He was in his season against Schumacher and Zhou, wasn't it? Schwartzman. Yeah, I remember watching Bahrain. Was that when Schumacher won the championship? There was a very close race at the end, and Ilott could have won it basically. And because he didn't win that season, I felt like he went very ignored. But I think he's doing quite well in IndyCar now, isn't he?
He doesn't have a contract, but
he lost his seat to Grosjean, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, that was big.
But he's got.
I promise I will never do this on another podcast again. This is boy. I love it.
He's got a test for McLaren because Maliukas has broke a wrist or something.
He came off his bike, I think, didn't he?
He's testing to maybe do the McLaren drive until he gets back. So.
Yeah, I think he's off till. I think he's going to miss 3 races. I think I read that somewhere, which is obviously the first 3 openers. So we'll see. But Ilott's a weird one because I always felt like he really was quick. I mean, he was quicker than Zhou, for sure. And, he's really been forgotten. I think that's the upsetting thing about the lack of seats in F1, F2, and kind of other series, I guess, but mainly F1 is you have these talents which are completely missed, but yet other people come through that were less talented, And I do think the question of money and kind of greed might be the wrong word, but I'm kind of going to use it. But, that kind of greed for money in Formula One. I think you see it in other sports like football. Obviously it's been a lot of it's been brought up by Saudi money, but the competition is still really there. And I do want to sometimes, if F1 could be a bit too greedy in its profits, as you were saying with Haas and other teams. The
only good thing about that is a lot of drivers are now seeing IndyCar as a viable progression. It never used to be.
Yep.
It was when Nigel Mansell went there to finish his career. Now it's like, I'm going there to start my career. And you're seeing some drivers, what's the name? Is it Jack Aitken, who now wants to focus in the WEC and do sports cars. So they're now realising that Formula One positioned itself as the pinnacle of motorsport, and now drivers are going, actually, is it?
Because it's definitely made it so that more viewers will go to other motorsport as well. I've not seen so many people watch IndyCar or different motorsport events until recently. I think when I used to talk about motorsport to my friends, always be Formula One, and now literally everyone has gone to different series just to see different drivers. And I think that is down to the case Formula One are completely isolating themselves for money.
Yeah, I would argue that it's only the drivers that don't make Formula One that question whether it's the pinnacle of motorsport or not.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree with you on the it's brought fans into other motorsport series. I mean, it completely surprised me today at work that I was having a conversation with a couple of people about the 12 Hours of Bathurst that was on this weekend.
Wow.
And I never thought I would have this chat with anyone other than a hardcore motor racing fan.
Does that come down to having people like Rossi doing cars now, and Alonso going into IndyCar for a bit and doing the 500?
I think it does. I mean, I think over here definitely the Rossi effect, because we are a rarity on the Isle of Man that we don't talk about bikes all the time.
Well, yeah.
Hence the 3 legs, 4 wheels, just to separate from the 2-wheeled fans everywhere. But if it gets more eyes on other different forms of motorsport, then that's great. Then I can carry on talking to people at work about WEC and IndyCar and NASCAR if anyone stays up late enough on a Sunday.
NASCAR is the only motorsport that I just find so boring. I just look at them and think, yeah, I look at them and think, yeah, you've had relations with family members.
The only bit I really enjoyed was at one point last year, someone crashed, and then he waited for the next lap for the guy that had crashed into him to come past and threw his helmet at him. I enjoyed that very much. Otherwise, not so much.
She's my cousin.
Worst thing is he missed. He didn't hit the guy with the helmet.
No, the question is, which helmet was it?
It's the extra finger it gets in the way on your throwing hand.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I used to think that about NASCAR, but I've got to be honest and say that
you bloody love it.
Sim racing has really got me into watching NASCAR because there is actually an element of skill to it.
I'm just going to step in and say, WEC, when Alonso was doing WEC, I tried watching it, did find it quite tedious. It's good for the first hour. then after that, it's like, oh, they're leading by 3 laps. Like, and just like, well, how are you going to get 3 laps back in 5 hours of racing? Like, you're not really. And then you come back and watch it like 4 hours later and say, so I'll just go and see what's happening. And the lead is just extended more. It's just like, okay, so nothing really has happened. I've not missed anything in the last 4 hours. Okay. But I mean, I gave it a go. I gave WEC a go. And for me, I was just like, oh, this is literally most of the time I'm awake for today spent watching a race, which not much racing is happening.
Yeah, I think if you watch the whole thing, if you like, for example, people who watched the whole 24 Hours of Le Mans sat there, I think is slightly sociopathic because it is very,
Paul
can be very tedious. Sorry, Paul, if I've just offended you. I think with those things, there's an art to watching it. I think there's like ways you do it which can make it really fun.
It's called a drinking game.
Yeah, exactly.
Car on fire, 2 fingers. Car going the wrong way in the pits, finish your drink. It's just things like that, and it gets you through.
Exactly.
The thing is,
I think being there makes a difference. I think this is what F1's going for, right? It's the festival vibe of Le Mans. I mean, one of the best ones ever made is Le Mans, the Steve McQueen Le Mans film. And the reason is because it captures that kind of idea of like Le Mans being more than racing at points, and it has like the scenes where he's not racing, and it's like he's at some larger event. And I think that's what everyone wants, which is now, you have the concerts and all these different things. I think that's definitely an element of endurance racing, which makes it so spectacular. I really want to do 24 Hours of Nürburgring purely because it looks absolutely mental for everything around the track. It almost feels like at some points the racing is secondary to the drinking next to it.
Try it on iRacing, you get to do the drinking and the driving at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. All in the comfort of your home.
Yeah. I mean, what was it when Liberty took over F1? Chase Carey said he wanted 21 Super Bowls, and after just watching the Super Bowl, it means we're going to get 21 attempts at competitive national anthem singing to see how long it can last, and then Usher's going to turn up halfway through.
And 21 races in America by the looks of all the planning permission that's been put forward.
That reminds me, that was something that came out today. Apparently the Clark County in Las Vegas don't actually have a long-term agreement to host the Grand Prix, and they're not overly keen on it continuing.
Isn't there? There's a 10-year agreement in place for the Grand Prix, but the permit only lasts for 3 years.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to love
That's
bureaucracy.
bad planning.
Because weirdly, doesn't
along locals, was it? It was a very like F1 loved it, and fans loved it, and those who flew in their private jets loved it. But the actual locals of Las Vegas, kind of hated it. So it's one of those controversial things. But I know Chicago have looked at a race. I know New York are looking at a race. I mean, is there not a major, American city that doesn't want to host an F1 race right now?
Elizabethtown, Kentucky.
That might be what to do.
I'm going to say Charlotte, and only that's because where NASCAR's based.
Yeah.
The South won't take it.
The only thing I liked about NASCAR was that it last year that the guy just threw it around the wall and just floored it to win the race.
The Ross Chastain move, yes.
Yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah, the wall is my brake and also my steering wheel.
I do watch too much NASCAR.
I found it really funny when they came out and said that they were changing the way that they put the wheels to the car to similar to a Formula One style rather than like the 5 bolts. And the fan base went mental. They're like, what? Over bolts and a wheel? Really? Like, okay, that's how exciting your sport is, that you're going to moan about how the tyres are bolted to the car? Right. Okay.
Yeah, but it's the Deep South. There's traditions. They've done things this way for tens of thousands of years. Things like marrying your cousin and deep-seated ingrained racism and all that. It's got to carry on in NASCAR.
Yeah. I mean, you
Why
can't
change now?
Just because you've had a deep-seated love of your sister in a different way doesn't mean it's right.
Hey, that offends all 3 Isle of Wight people here. I just like to,
who we all might be related
to the same sister.
Given the size of part of my family, yes, that's an entirely possible connection.
Keep it in the family, eh?
Yeah, it's not a gene pool, it's more a gene bird bath.
No, it's a pool. There's thousands of them.
I think we've covered quite a lot tonight, and I think we've managed to do this without talking over each other massively. Is it time that we plugged our individual shows and socials and what have you? And we'll let the Everything F1 team go first.
Okay, so yeah, we are Everything F1. We have chats. I'm not going to say very similar to this, but we do have chats all the same about the wonderful world of Formula One and other motorsports as well. We've interviewed loads of great guests, as Paul mentioned earlier. Lundgaard was one of our guests recently. We had Rob Smedley, and we are always trying to get more and more guests to come and chat to and interview as well, and get some good conversations with. You can follow us on all our socials. We're at JoinEF1. On all socials, and of course we'd love it if you'd hit the subscribe button on our podcast streaming service to get all of our latest podcasts in your earlobes. Thank you.
And for anyone that hasn't listened to us before, we are 3 Legs 4 Wheels. Obviously we cover F1 with, I'm just going to say, quite a few tangents that we do veer into, some of them involving motorsport, many of them not. We also cover a little bit of sim racing as well, because I've taking it up and I'm inflicting it on everyone. Again, we've had quite a few guests on from the world of motorsport, including Romain Grosjean's race engineer at one point, which I'd completely forgotten about.
I love that you lead on that and not like Lando and George Russell.
I was building up. I was building up to Lando and George Russell.
Wow, we're small fry compared to you. If you've had those two, that'd be amazing.
It was before there were F1 drivers, but they've still been on the show. And you can get us on all the socials at 3 Legs 4 Wheels. And again, if you're not a subscriber already, subscribe to us on whatever your favourite podcast platform is.
Yes.
Right.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and putting this together. And I think people are going to enjoy this, and it'll be a good intro to both our shows.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you. It was good to have a chat and kind of meet you all. And Coops was a bit of a fanboy, and he was like, "I've got to be on this one. I've got to be on."
I get it.
A bit of me wanted to spite him and just say, "No, you're not on this one, Coops. No, I'm going to hold you back."
I'm not saying anything, but he has been tweeting and messaging me on Discord for about the last 2 weeks since we arranged this.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I've been fanboying it. Yes, I'm on the Discord. I've been making sure I'm following you all on Twitter as well.
I've only just connected that. You're Coops EF1.
I am Coops EF1.
Just love that.
He's the stalker.
I'm Kieran is boring.
I even have myself a tinfoil hat, but he didn't want the cameras on, and it was all for Lee. But he didn't want it. It's fine. No.
Now we've mentioned it, I'm going to plug my show on Saturday. Come and listen to Alien Addict, especially if you're in the States. We have the Q Shaman from the January 6th insurrection in for an interview.
I think
10 o'clock.
I think you have just won best guest name
10
drop
o'clock.
of the night.
10 o'clock UK, 5 Eastern, YouTube, Rumble, and X.
And yes, I did look at that before I came on the podcast as well. Yeah.
So you're going to be talking to the guy who dressed up as a giant teddy bear without a shirt on.
Or Jamiroquai, yeah.
Jamira quid pro quo.
So what do you think of a new president, then?
Might not lead with that.
No.
I mean, technically, you'll probably say we haven't got a new president. It's still Trump. But, yeah. My hobby's fucking weird.
You just said what 8 other people are thinking.
I think at one point Lee had about 14 podcasts going. It's not so bad that we're down to like 2.
Well, kind of, but
universe.
Alien Addict is now live Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So,
Wow.
But how do you watch Gogglebox? I mean, that's. That's wait till Monday.
I don't watch the Tell A Vision, Kieran.
The Tell You Vision, more like. Am I right?
No,
Yeah.
he gets all his information.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Do you know what? Seeing as how we've drifted it like
The guys shouting F1 must be wondering what the hell is happening here.
No, it was fucking wild the other day. About 2 days ago, I got a shout out on the Alex Jones show.
Hey!
Wow.
Yeah, fucking weird.
Well done, Tiller. You can edit that one right out.
Yep, that'll be on the cutting room floor.
What, was it a shout out or was it a shout and go away?
No, it was a thank you. It was a thank you.
Oh no!
Oh, what? He's bought shares in Baco Foil, and you're keeping them propped up.
Yep.
And on that note, thanks everyone for listening, and
You think people are still listening?
yeah, if you've stuck with it this long. Enjoy testing this week, and we will be back next week with, I'm sure we'll both be doing previews of what is to come in Bahrain. We'll see you soon.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.